Ever wander through an old bookstore?
Trail your eyes looking for more.
And there it is, all torn and full of lore.
Then you belong here. Lift your glasses and let's give a cheer.
Huzzah!
Welcome
to the Secondhand Poets.
Hi, friends. Welcome to the Secondhand Poets podcast. This will be our first installment. Hopefully, it won't be horrible.
Maybe we'll get it right.
We did a little practice before, but we don't really have a script, so we'll just
Carry on.
carry on. So why do we call it Secondhand Poets? I'm Ray, that's Kay.
Hello.
And we like to go to secondhand bookstores and raid the poetry section and find old poetry books. And we found some really interesting stuff.
Yes.
In the poetry section of secondhand bookstores.
This one we found in New Orleans.
That's right. And so we wanted to share some of these poems and poets with you out there in the world, and we think they're relevant today, and they're certainly entertaining, if nothing else, right?
And hopefully we will be as well.
Yeah, so we're just going to jump into it. This episode we're going to focus on this book, Just Folks, by Edgar Guest, and we're just going to jump right in. We'll talk a little bit more about the book and Edgar Guest as we go, but I wanted to give you...
Cool.
He was very cool. So I wanted to give you a sense of what his poetry was like. So we're going to start with one that's called Unimportant Differences. If he is honest, kindly, true, and glad to work from day to day, if when his bit of toil is through, with children he will stop to play, if he does always what he can to serve another's time of need, then I shall hail him as a man, and never ask him what is his creed. If he respects a woman's name and guards her from all thoughtless jeers, if he is glad to play life's game and not risk all to get the cheers, if he disdains to win by bluff and scorns to gain by sad, shady tricks, I hold that he is good enough, regardless of his politics. If he is glad to match, if he is glad his much to share with them who little here possess, if he will stand by what is fair and not desert to claim success, if he will leave a smile behind as he proceeds from place to place, he has the proper frame of mind, and I won't stop to ask his race. For when at last life's battle ends and all troops are called on high, we shall discover many friends that thoughtlessly we journeyed by. And we shall learn that God above has judged his creatures by their deeds, that millions there have won his love, who spoke in different tongues and creeds. Very interesting.
Very relevant.
Yeah, with all of the Black Lives Matters and all of that going on.
So this was published in 1917, so that poem was written prior to that, well before the Civil Rights Movement. Many people still around who fought in the Civil War.
All right.
So, as a journalist, because he worked for the Detroit Press for 60 some odd years. Crazy to stay in one place for 60 years. But he saw a lot of things and dealt with a lot of different people. Mm-hmm. And it's nice to see that somebody, with all the turmoil and the changes and everything going on, could still keep that open mind. And it's hopeful that we can do so today, though, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Well, something else to keep in mind about this book, it was published in 1917, which actually just a few months before the end of World War I. So World War I is a background for all the poetry in the book. And that really set the tone, I think, for a lot of the poems that you'll hear.
Yeah, it was in that time of what was going on, people were focused on helping the country survive and supporting the country versus on the individual needs. That is different from today.
Yeah, that's a attitude that doesn't exist today so much.
Correct. And Edgar definitely portrayed and lived that attitude. In fact, My glasses are coming off. I can't read with my glasses. If you go to one of the poems that struck with me, deep with me, but explains a lot about who he is called The Truth About Envy. I like to see the flowers grow, to see the pansies in a row. I think a well-kept garden's fine, and wish that such a one were mine. But one can't have a stalk of flowers unless he digs and digs for hours. My ground is always bleak and bare. The roses do not flourish there. And where I once sowed poppy seeds is now a tangled mass of weeds. I'm fond of flowers, but admit, for digging, I don't care a bit. I envy men whose yards are gay, but never work as hard as they. I also envy men who own more wealth than I have ever known. I'm like a lot of men who yearn for joys that they refuse to earn. You cannot have the joys of work and take the comfort of a shirk. I find the man I envy most is he who longest at his post. I could have gold and roses too, if I would work like those who do. That's just, I love that one.
It says a lot.
It says a lot. And Edgar worked a lot. But, you know, in this day and age, we have the younger generation that everyone says is entitled and they're not willing to work. They think everyone's supposed to come in. So that's not true of everyone. Your daughter, my stepdaughter, is definitely not entitled.
Absolutely.
But there is that stereotype. And it runs true. I mean, I'm in education. You have kids coming to you all the time. Why didn't I pass? Well, you didn't turn any work in. So you kind of have to do the work to get where you're going. The same as in my garden we set up.
Yep.
And Edgar did the work. I mean, he worked hard. Do you know how he became a poet?
I think you told me, but go ahead and tell the story.
You're so much better, but I'll try. So he's a journalist. He's always been a newspaper man. A newspaper man with poetic verse is what he would say. But he was at a funeral of an older journalist, and it was a rainy day, and he realized that nobody was going to remember this guy. He was just a journalist. He put newspapers and stories out, and he did it for his entire life. And he was well respected, but in 10 years, nobody would know his name. And he decided that he needed to find a niche, something that he could fit into, where he would be remembered and thought about. And so on that rainy day, he chose poetry.
And here we are thinking about him.
Here we are thinking about him.
Way to go, Edward. Edgar.
Edgar.
Way to go, Edgar.
Yeah. So I believe you are next, which brings us back to the historical context.
Right. This one is the farm, right?
Yeah, the flag on the farm.
Yeah.
So one of the things I find interesting about this one is with all of the wars and actions and everything else we've been involved in, the attitude towards the flag, because it's been taken as a political statement these days, has changed a lot. And I think I don't want to lose the feeling about the country that's in there.
It'd be nice to get this back. Anyway, let's jump right into it. So this is called The Flag on the Farm. We have raised a flagpole on the farm and flung Old Glory to the sky, and it's another touch of charm that seems to cheer the passerby. But more than that, no matter where we're laboring in wood and field, we turn and see it in the air, our promise of a greater yield. It whispers to us all day long, from dawn to dusk, be true, be strong. Who falters now with plow and hoe gives comfort to the country's foe. It seems to me I've never tried to do so much about the place, nor been so slow to come inside. But since I've got the flag to face, each night when I come home to rest, I feel I must look up there and say, old flag, I've done my best. Today I've tried to do my share. And sometimes, just to catch the breeze, I stop my work, and o'er the trees Old Glory fairly shouts my way, you're shirking far too much today. The help have caught the spirit too. The hired man takes off his cap before the old red, white, and blue. Then to horses says, giddy up! And starting bravely to the field, he tells the milkmaid by the door, We're going to make these acres yield more than they've ever done before. She smiles to hear his gallant brag, then drops a curtsy to the flag. And in her eyes there seems to shine a patriotism that is just fine. We've raised a flagpole on the farm and flung Old Glory to the sky. We're far removed from war's alarm, but courage here is running high. We're doing things we never dreamed we'd ever find time to do. Deeds that seemed impossible once seemed. Each morning now we hurry through. The flag now waves above our toil and sheds its glory on the soil, and boy and man looks up to it as if to say, I'll do my bit. Yeah. We don't look at the flag like that anymore.
But there's also the concept of working together in there.
Yep.
Instead of working for the individual, actually working together.
Working for the country as
Yeah.
a whole, right?
And having respect for not necessarily just the owners of the farm, but everyone working it as well.
Yep.
So everyone has an importance. And they feel worthy. Like they're worth something.
They're working for a common goal.
Right. And that would be so nice to have again.
They really would.
But there are a lot of people out there that are trying to get back to that.
That's true. Maybe we can get there one day.
That is true.
Oh, wait. I think
You're next again.
that's right. You wanted me to read this one, which also is pretty relevant to today's society, if I can get to it. There it is. Ha. This one kind of hit home too. It's called On Quitting. How much grit do you think you've got? Can you quit a thing you like a lot? You may talk of pluck, it's an easy word, and where'er you go it's often heard, but can you tell a jot or guess just how much courage you now possess? You may stand to trouble and keep your grin, but have you tackled self-discipline? Have you ever issued commands to you to quit the things you like to do, and then, when tempted and sorely swayed, those rigid orders have you obeyed? Don't boast of your grit till you've tried it out, nor prate to men of your courage stout, for it's easy enough to retain a grin. In the face of a fight, there's a chance to win. But the sort of grit that's good to own is stuff you need when you're all alone. How much grit do you think you've got? Can you turn from joys that you like a lot? Have you ever tested yourself to know how far with yourself your will can go? If you want to know if you have grit, just pick out a joy you like and quit. It's bully sport. It's an open fight. It will keep you busy both day and night. For the toughest kind of game you'll find is to make your body obey your mind. And you'll never know what is meant by grit unless there's something that you've tried to quit. It's really hard.
To quit things?
Yeah.
Yeah, especially when they're fun, but you know they're bad for you.
But that's one of the things that hasn't changed about
No.
life then and now.
That's been true from the beginning of time.
That's right. Yeah.
And will be the same till the end of time.
Yeah.
I mean, you've had to help a friend quit heroin.
I always remember him when I read that poem. Yeah.
You know,
That's one of the toughest things to quit.
and it really is an internal struggle, regardless of how much help you have on the outside.
It is. Yep. So,
But grit is also, it forwards on to the fact that you have to persevere and keep going. If you've got that grit, that's what you have, is the perseverance to, get above that hill or go to
Right.
the next day or wake up in the morning and go back to work when you
back
don't
to
want it or you don't
Yeah.
like it.
and there's a lot of people that really have trouble with that
True.
today.
Edgar wasn't one of them.
No.
No. He and his brother, even to publish their first book, they bought the typeset. That's what it's called, right? Because you used to do that stuff.
Yeah, they had a manual typesetting machine. So in fact, Edgar had to limit the size of his poems because they had a limited number of E's. They always ran out of E's, so they had to limit the size of his poems to the number of characters that they had.
And this is actually, I believe, the first book published by when they were picked up by actual publishers.
Maybe. You may be right. I don't know.
You look on the inside, it'll tell me. Yep, Riley and Britton Company. It was the first one.
Okay.
They did 3 books before this one got picked up.
You know, he also did a radio show later on.
I love the radio show.
Yeah, and you could get recordings of the radio show. In fact, you can download the book from a lot of places online. If you Google the book Just Folks by Edgar Guest, you can download it from the Gutenberg Project.
Love Gutenberg.
I think it's Gutenberg.com. Could be wrong.
Yes, I believe you're right. Or it could be .org.
It's probably .org. You're right. So, but you can download the whole book. But, you know, it's more fun to go to a secondhand bookstore and dig through and see what you can find. You might find this one. You might find something else.
I will say that we got the Old Time Radio Show. We went to the Old Time Radio Show webpage, and for $5, I got his entire radio show.
Yep, you can hear Edgar himself read his poetry. So
with Edward Howard singing.
Yeah.
And then advertisements for Land O'Lakes because that was their...
That's right. The ads are
sponsor.
part of the show, and Edgar actually does the ads on the show. It's really interesting. You should download it. I recommend it. It's fun.
It is.
So I think you had another poem for
I
us.
have one poem left, and this is something that I hold dear to my heart, and I think everyone should remember, and there are times I come back to this poem to remind myself, because we need to have this in these crazy, scary times.
It's the last one in the book, right?
It is. It's the very last book. Oh, I dropped something.
That's all right. We'll get it later.
It's called Roses and Sunshine. Rough is the road I am journeying now, heavy the burden I'm bearing today. But I'm humming a song as I wander along, and I smile at the roses that nod by the way. Red roses sweet, blooming there at my feet, just dripping with honey and perfume and cheer. What a weakling I'd be if I tried not to see the joy and the comfort you bring to us here. Just tramping along over the highway of life, knowing not what's ahead, but still doing my best. And I sing as I go, for my soul seems to know, in the end I shall come to the valley of rest. With the sun in my face and the roses to grace, the roads that I travel, what have I to fear? What a coward I'd be if I tried not to see the roses of hope and sunshine and cheer.
Very nice.
Makes me all warm and fuzzy.
There's a lot of great poetry in this book, so
Yes.
I highly recommend it. There's a lot of good stuff that we haven't read because we have limited time, but I highly recommend that you find it if you can, and if you don't find the hard copy, you can download it right out of the internet.
But it's still fun to go through the bookstores.
Yep. So I think that's it for our first installment.
It is. It was fun.
It was.
It was. But you know what we got to do?
What?
We have to remind them
What?
to be kind,
That's right. Got to be kind, be safe,
be
sane,
and be
poetic.
Have a good night.
Bye, friends.